Hi, I'm Stacey.
And I'm Lois.
And you're listening to Whose Girl Are You? Today we're going to talk about parenting insecurity.
Because nobody has that.
Just one part of our insecurities.
Right.
When did it start? Do you have it? Maybe you don't. I don't know. I want to find out.
Maybe you had it before you were actually a parent.
Explain.
I think parenting insecurity starts even before your baby's born.
Okay.
Because if you've never done this before, and there's a lot of opinions out there, and there's a lot of advice, and it's important, I mean, you're raising a little human, and that can be stressful.
I think you're right about it starting early. Even if I think back, things were so different back then. When I had my first, we could still eat cold cuts and take saunas and do things and eat things, and it wasn't so strict. Right now, I feel like girls already have so much parenting insecurity they're not even taking care of their unborn child well, because there's all of these things you're supposed to do or not do, and take your prenatals, and if you forget, then there's guilt, and maybe, you had a cigarette or something, right?
Yeah.
And like back in 99, when I was pregnant for my first, I was smoking when I got pregnant, and my doctor legit told me, how much are you smoking? And I said, when I got pregnant, I was smoking a pack a day. I said, I've been trying to cut down, obviously, and quit since I got pregnant. And he said, well, if you can keep it to like 10 a day, that's fine. And that's what he told me.
Yeah.
You would never hear that now.
No.
I just feel like there wasn't so much pressure. I didn't feel guilty pregnant.
Right.
Like I knew I was supposed to take prenatals, but people just didn't come down on you so hard.
Right.
And so you get all the prenatals you're supposed to have for your entire pregnancy. So it's 3 bottles or something like that. And by the time I was done with my pregnancy, I had ate maybe 1 bottle of it in total, because they made me feel nauseous.
Right. Yeah. You're like, which is worse? I'm feeling sick, or I'm getting the vitamins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it can really start. I mean, let me even back up a minute. I actually didn't even know if I wanted to have kids before I had kids, because I had different fears of, I don't know if I'll be a great parent, or what if I have a child who's handicapped, which was really on the top of my brain because my sister is handicapped and she's my only sibling. So I was like, what if I have a child and they have the same problem that my sister has? I don't know. I've been helping with that problem my whole life. I don't know if I can do it.
Right.
Like do that more. Right.
Right.
So yeah, I already had insecurities before I even considered.
Right. And then you go to the insecurities of, like you said, am I going to be a good parent? Am I going to be able to teach this child? Be patient with this child, like my own nature. Like parenting is sacrifice. And will I be able to do that actually well enough?
Well, guess what? More and more people are choosing to not have children.
I know.
And I think these are some of the reasons why you see all these memes type of things like, oh yeah, have a kid, they say, and then there's some parent screaming at their kid and flipping out, or talking about how exhausted they are because they don't sleep and all of these things. So it doesn't look like why do people have kids? That's really that's the question. Why do you want to have a kid? Did you ask I don't know. I didn't ask myself that.
I didn't either. I was too young.
Yeah. Before I got married was when I was just like, oh, I don't know if I ever want to have kids because of this. Right. And then I got married, and I was like, when I was going into marriage, I said, well, I probably want to wait at least 3 years before I start considering that. 3 months into marriage, I was like, what are we waiting for? Like, you get married, and then that just seems like the next natural step. And I wasn't really thinking about why I wanted it. It's just I think honestly, I think it's just like hormonal. I think biologically God created us to want that. And the ones that don't want that, I can't explain that. I don't know what's going on there.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't think about, I just wanted a baby.
Right.
All my friends started having kids and I was just like, why not? Right.
Yeah,
You don't
exactly.
know. I'm glad I did.
Oh yeah, me too.
You know, but when you ask somebody who has a toddler who's not sleeping and whatever, are you glad you had kids? Like in that moment, you're like, what a horrible mistake I've made, right?
Right.
But then you get some sleep and then you have a meal and then they're all like
They take
cute
a
and smiley
nap.
again. Yeah, they're fed and rested, you're fed and rested. Now it's a whole different ball game.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
But the societal pressure to not have children or to not have a large family is huge. You know, if you have 4 kids these days, people think you're like, I don't know, crazy. Like you don't know how this happens.
Mm-hmm. And people with that many kids when they're little feel like they're crazy as well. So they don't need to hear that. Here's what I see when I look at the big family, because I'm not from a big family, nor do I have a big family. But when I see these big families, I married into one. It might be like crazy and whatever when they're all little and then they start growing up. And when I see the parents sit back and look at the fruits of their labors, right? Because there's a lot of sleepless nights in there and different things. But when I see these big families come together, multi-generational, it is one of the most beautiful things. And it doesn't come without a lot of hard work and sweat and tears, but it's beautiful.
It is absolutely beautiful. There's no other relationship on earth that tops that. The fruit of a large family or the fruit of a marriage with lots of children, lots of grandchildren. It's incredible.
And then they have so much support built in through siblings and even the cousins have cousins and, you know, all of that.
Yeah.
So it's built in friends as well.
Yeah.
I didn't have that. I mean, I've always had friends, but
right.
And some of them were cousins, but
Yeah.
the big families they seem different. They have their own challenges for sure. But.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Sometimes you don't get any, you know, space.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, I think now in the current culture, it's getting harder and harder to do it because our money's so inflated and there's, you know, affordable housing isn't really out there and, you know, there's a lot of things going on.
So how about that
for
question,
people
then?
starting off now?
Yeah. So how about that question then? Do you wait to have children until you can afford children? Because that's another parental insecurity, right? Like when you get married, people are like, you can't afford to have a baby.
Yeah. I mean, it's a real problem. I mean, what if you can't, what if you have to both work and you don't have anyone to watch that kid?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, there's a bunch of things that need to be thought about for sure. But I don't think that when I hear people say like, well, we're just not ready for kids. Like we got to grow up a little bit more or whatever. That one gets me because I think to myself, the surest, fastest way to grow up is to have a kid.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Like, you're waiting to grow up? Like
that'll teach you.
That's a little silly. I mean,
yeah.
I get it. If you're trying to work out, you have some major issues in your marriage, you want to try to work those out and resolve those without adding a kid to the mix. Sure. You know,
yeah.
But there's never a perfect time to have a kid. And I think my thing, the younger, the better.
Yeah.
You know, because my kids are spaced apart just by God's design because I didn't choose that. I wanted to have my 3 kids close together and that didn't happen. So I have a 5-year space and a 4-year space in between my 3.
Mm-hmm.
So having them spaced like that, I had my first one at 23 and I bounced back like nobody's business, right? Like I was back in my jeans in 6 weeks and I felt like I was young. I bounced back quick. Even though she didn't sleep and whatever, I could roll with it. I was still, you know, still young. And then my second one, 5 years later, I felt like I bounced back pretty quick too, but maybe not quite as much. And I blamed it on just, well, I have 2 kids now, so it might take a minute longer. But then when that third one came along 4 years later, now I'm in my 30s because they're so spaced apart. And I did not bounce back in my 30s as like I bounced back in my 20s. So I think that, and then I have like sister-in-laws, whatever, that had kids, didn't start until their 30s or, you know, into their early 40s. And you can just see the level of exhaustion. There's a real thing about like losing your stamina with each decade of like what you can tolerate and stand up against and bear under. I don't know. Yeah. The resiliency, I think, starts to like you ever see like really old people, and if you have like a couple girls that are really like quiet and coloring or whatever, they love it. They love having kids around. But if you bring like few like toddler boys around them, like they can't handle the noise and the ruckus of it all. They're just like, they can't do it. Yeah. It's not that they hate kids or something. They just can't. Their resiliency and their tolerance for the chaos is just gone. Yeah. I had my first at 18. That's crazy. And I had my last. I turned, let me think, it's too early in the morning for math, man. Well, your last one was like 2 weeks. I was turned 42 a couple weeks after he was born. Yeah. Yeah. And did you see a difference? Just a little. Right? Just a tiny bit. Tiny bit. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I think waiting to have kids, maybe, you know, financially, maybe you'll be a little bit more stable, but I don't know. I don't know that financial stability should weigh into it. I really don't. No. I truly believe that, especially living where we live, you know, in the United States of America, you don't have that. None of us have had true hunger. Right. Maybe I shouldn't say none of us. No one I know has suffered from true hunger or true want. Well, no, like I've said on previous ones, like even when I was pregnant for my third kid and we hit a hard patch during the recession when the housing market collapsed, well, we still didn't starve even though we didn't have any income because we had food stamps. Exactly. So, I mean, I ate better on food stamps than I did when we were budgeting our money that we were making. And that's what I meant is I don't feel like it's not financial should be a huge part of it. You know, maybe you won't be able to have a bank account that says kids college fund on it if you have a large family. But you know what? If they want to go to college, they'll figure out a way to do it. Right. And that shouldn't weigh into it heavily. But I think that in the society that we live in, sometimes that financial pressure is like you have to have your house built or half paid off, or you have to have a college fund. You have to have, you know, the nursery all set up and with the latest and the greatest. Yeah, let's go there. So what does a kid really need when you bring it home from the hospital? Some car seat. Well, they won't let you even leave if you don't have a car seat. Yeah, exactly. Well, if you have your baby at home, then they don't have any, you know. Okay, Lois. You can do that. Now, come on now. Like, you don't have to. No pressure. But people have been having babies for thousands of years before there were hospitals. I don't want to hear this story. You're not sick. You're not sick when you're pregnant. I know, but like. No, there is a place. There is a place for hospitals. I won't disagree. Yes. Thank you. We already know your angle on this topic. And I definitely stand on the hospital. Like, I know people that have their kids at home and I'm like, good for you. You know, not for me. Yeah. So I want to be right where I can get whatever medical attention. So I'm like, don't bleed out and hemorrhage and die. And my kid, if it comes out blue, that I don't know. Anyway, that's a whole nother topic. That doesn't matter. Like, you derailed it. I know, right? We were talking about having to have your nursery all fancy. And oh, yeah. So what do you need to have a kid? A car seat. Some diapers. Or, wipes. You know, yeah. I mean, you don't need them. You can use towels and sheets and washcloths. I mean, You. Okay. So diapers and wipes. If you're Lois, you just stay at home and wipe your kid's butt with sheets, towels, whatever you can find. It's fine.
No, I'm saying they had before disposable diapers and packs of wipes, people had babies for thousands of years. That's part of the parental pressure that comes with that. Like you have to have everything. Well, no, you don't.
No, you don't.
Okay,
you really don't.
So, but I fully support using disposable diapers and wipes because, that's
right.
Much easier. I'm just saying it isn't necessary. What is necessary?
Oh, no, it's not necessary. You absolutely can do the cloth. I know people that have done those. And guess what? People that kids have cloth diapers, they potty train earlier.
Probably because it's uncomfortable. They don't have that
no doubt
moisture wicking fabric or fabric-ish lining.
Yeah.
You're sitting in moisture. It's gross.
But you don't really need anything, No. You really don't.
No.
I mean,
that's what it was coming down to. You don't need a nursery with a brand name crib.
You don't even need a bassinet. I mean, everyone has a laundry basket. You can legit put a blanket at the bottom of it and put your baby in that, on the floor near your bed if you needed to. It's not a big deal. I mean, back in the day, they slept babies in drawers of dresser drawers.
Yep.
I remember my mom telling me that she actually put me in a laundry basket. They didn't have a car seat. They put me in a laundry basket in the back seat.
Wow.
On the floor or whatever. I was just rolling around back there. It makes so much sense now. I have no idea.
That's awesome.
They would swaddle the baby and then take the blanket and tuck it in the seat. Mm-hmm.
So the baby didn't roll off.
Yeah. They did all kinds of stuff like that. I really
innovative
love all of those
creative
ideas. I mean, honestly, I love the freedom of just do what you want,
Yeah.
But then, So I don't think you don't really need a lot. It comes down to want or other people telling you need all this stuff, but you don't. And what a luxury it is that most of us have all of these other things that are just amazing. I mean, they came out with that Owlette, or is that what it's called? Where you can buy these little sensors that you put on your newborn's foot to do the pulse and whatever. The baby monitors they have now, they have video on them and sound on them and everything. And it's just it's insane what they have now.
Yeah.
So I actually went to look for a baby monitor when my grandson was born so that when I had him, I could go, be out in the yard or whatever. And I could, if he was taking a nap or something, so I could hear him. Mm-hmm. So obviously I long ago got rid of all of this stuff. I went to Bye Bye Baby and was looking for the cheap, just the one I had back in the day, just the four little lights that would light up and this little sound wheel that you could turn up or down. That was it. Mm-hmm. And there was none on display. I asked them, do you have any that aren't video or Wi-Fi or all this fancy? And she said, let me check. And she comes back and she said, well, we have this one. And she looked at me this trash. We have this trash. Mm-hmm. And it's only $20. And I was just I'll take it, Yeah,
that's all I need.
That's what I want.
Yeah.
And guess what? I bet that monitor that I have outlives anything that people were buying at the same time.
Well, the other ones are going to be obsolete because they're not going to use the latest whatever.
They're software update not available.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So, I just did it. I mean, I think those are cool. All the new ones are really neat, but it's not what I needed, right?
No.
The baseline.
Right.
So, yeah, you don't need a bunch of stuff. So, parenting insecurities, let's fast forward now. So we know with babies, there's a lot of insecurities because it's your first time, it's your first kid. You don't really know what you're doing. And so you're looking to others for guidance. Mm-hmm. And that's fine. Just be careful who you ask. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
Because you will hear a variety of information. But then your kid gets older and then now here's the next parenting insecurity. I'm just going to list off a few, right? Okay, here they are. Here's the parenting. Here's the thing. Anyway, these were mine. Maybe these aren't everybody's. First off, are you going to nurse or not nurse? Okay.
Yes.
Second off, are you going to vaccinate or not vaccinate? Third, are you putting them in school or are you homeschooling or private school or what are you doing with that? Mm-hmm. Those were the big ones.
Mm-hmm. I think in between there.
Yeah.
Is potty training.
Oh gosh, yes. And taking away bottles and taking away pacifiers and taking away, like, at what age do you do that? Like, what's socially acceptable in that too? Yeah. Oh, here's another one. Spanking or not spanking.
Yeah.
Like corporal punishment or gentle parenting. You know, so it's like you're running a gauntlet.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? And I'm just like, keep your head down, mind your own business. Just.
Yeah, totally.
Here's my number one advice. Without your kids around, so obviously when they're sleeping or you go on a date, between you and your husband, you need to make these decisions based off of your financial situation, your spiritual convictions, your, you know, thoughts and upbringing and whatever. And the two of you need to make these decisions apart from social media and society and whatever. And like, you need to come to a consensus and an agreement on these things. These are the big ones.
Absolutely. Some of them, I think, need to be talked about earlier than before you are a parent.
Like which ones?
Well, you need to find out if you're going to, how are you going to discipline? Like, that's a huge thing. I didn't think of it before we got married to ask my husband, like, because I was 17 when we got married. I didn't, you know, it was just going to be great. And we were living in love and we were going to be fine. And we were.
Happily ever after.
Yes. And that's the truth.
Yeah.
But thankfully we didn't have vastly different ideas about how we would discipline or how we would raise our kids or what we would do, major decisions like that.
Do you think
I know some people who do.
Culturally, you just had similar upbringings or what?
I think so. But I think if you have vastly different ideas, it would be good to talk about it. I mean, some of the things that you can choose, say the discipline, that's going to be a major, major problem if you're on vastly different pages for that.
Yeah.
What are your expectations and what are his expectations? And if you don't have that settled, you're going to have, you know, to come to agreement if they're. I
mean, do you really think you can have that all settled before you have a kid though?
No, not set. I shouldn't say settled, but
you should discuss it anyway.
Yeah,
like as long as like you don't want to have, what you don't want is you don't want someone that's like gentle parenting. You don't ever lay a hand on a kid for any reason, no matter what.
They make all the decisions. They're the boss of the house.
Punishments.
The kid is the boss of the house, and that I'll just say that's what that means.
Gentle parenting means like the kid is the
kid is the boss. Yes.
Yeah. So if you have any questions or comments about that, you can email Lois at
whosegirlareyou
at gmail.com.
Yes.
So yeah, I don't actually know. I haven't really looked into gentle parent. I just kind of like hear it floating around. Obviously, you know, there comes a point. So we have parenting conferences once in a while. Maybe your church has them. Maybe you see them around or whatever, but at our church, it's like, I think they kind of flip flop between like, let's have a marriage conference this year and a parenting conference the following, and kind of back and forth with that. And I've gone to the last parenting conference I went to, I kind of was hesitant to go because someone's like, oh, are you going? They're all excited. Their kids are little. And I was like, I don't know. They kind of looked at me funny. And I said, well, I mean, I'm kind of done. You know, like my kid at the time my youngest was 13. And I'm like, if I don't have it figured out by now, like what? You know what I mean? Like, I'm
not going to learn any tips that are going to fix this.
No. And so I did go anyway, because I'm like, well, and I even convinced my husband to go. So like, we did end up going to it. It was just a 1-day thing. And it wasn't bad, but I guess I feel like that about marriage conferences now too, though. Like, I've been married 25 years and I mean, if you want to go to those your whole life, I mean, have at it, you know, like whatever, but not for me. If you don't kind of, like, you know, even when you have a problem with like, if I have a problem with my kid now, or I have a problem with my husband now, I know why.
Yes.
It's not that we don't know what we're supposed to do. It's just that somebody's not doing that.
Yeah, exactly.
Or someone's not holding that line, or someone's not following through on something. You know, so early on, it's just like, yeah, it's great to maybe hear two sides of something you don't know about.
Yeah.
But anyway, discipline. Yeah. Discipline can be a big one. So who was the bigger disciplinarian in the house? You or Al? Or was it equally shared?
It was pretty equally shared.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Obviously I shouldn't say obviously, it's not obvious to anyone, but the way our home worked,
Yeah.
he worked and was on the job. So he was gone during the days and I was home with the kids. And so the day-to-day, daily, all day long discipline fell to me.
Right.
But we were on the same page with it, and he was always very supportive. He had my back like nobody's business.
And so if you were training the kids during the day and someone was like not wanting to listen, like they knew Dad would come home and he would be on your side, not theirs.
Yep.
And so he could reinforce that in some capacity. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I pulled I'm going to tell your dad. And that was like the worst threat to them, which is so funny in my household, because in my household, I'm more of the hard one. I'm the one that's probably going to say no. I'm the one that's going to the hammer's going to drop. Mm-hmm. And it was so strange to me that I could say, I'm going to tell your dad and like he can deal with this. And they would go, no. And he's the gentle one. He's the yes guy. So I never understood that. I chalked it up to, he had a God-given,
authority.
Yeah. A God-given authority and kids just naturally know that.
And that's not a bad thing.
No.
That's another thing with parental insecurities that can be problematic is if the God-given roles are not supported or followed, it can get really muddy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying every mother is nurturing, because some are more nurturing than others. Mm-hmm. Or every father is a disciplinarian and an authority figure. But God did set up a home, and he set up that fatherhood, husband, leader of the home, authority figure, also responsible for everything. Because if you're the top of the pinnacle when it comes to your home and you are the umbrella over everything, you're the man, you're the husband, you're the father. Well, you're responsible for everybody that's under that umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a huge responsibility. people are like, maybe this is a little bit different subject, but marriage, having, the father is the head of the home, or the man is the head of the house. What does that look like? Well, it looks different in different marriages, but that also means that person in that position takes all the responsibility. And, the instruction for wives and husbands, I look at the wives, submit to your own husbands, and believe me, I fought with that. This is like totally different subject.
Are you kidding me? I still fight with that.
Well, I don't anymore.
Well,
but I did.
Yeah.
I did for a long time, for 40 years. And it was better and worse at different times in our marriage.
Mm-hmm.
But that instruction to wives, to me, looking at it, is easier than husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself for her. And I'm like, you know what that means? That means he dies. He dies for his wife. That's how Christ loved the church. He
Mm-hmm.
gave everything, including his life. And that's big.
Yeah.
And it's different in parenting, but it ties into parenting in that, yes, a man has a God-given authority. And when those roles are muddy, or when those places of authority that God has given are not upheld, it can get hard.
Mm-hmm.
And there's more conflict.
Well, there's going to be conflict no matter what, but yeah, I think it gets
because we're sinners.
Yeah.
That's that's why there's conflict.
Oh, yeah. So,
and we're saints, thank you, God, because he did love us enough to die for us. Jesus did.
mm-hmm.
So yeah, for parenting, I think those roles of father and mother are.
Let's just be honest, though. There's people out there that don't have father and mother. And right now,
or they have a bad father or a bad mother.
Exactly. For various reasons, right. even now, there's not a father in your household.
I know.
Right? For one reason. And then some others, it's a different reason, right?
Yes.
So whether it's from death or divorce, like there's a lot of single parents out there, whether it be guys or girls, trying to raise a kid alone. And so when you talk about those two roles, people just need to be conscious that the person is trying to play both roles.
And
that can be really a difficult thing to do. Yeah.
That'll give you parental insecurity.
Right.
Like I have to be the father and the mother.
Yeah.
So what do you suggest in that situation? I mean, we're whose girl are you? So I
assume we're mostly women are listening. I mean, I think for the single mothers, and my heart just goes out to them because it's hard enough to try to do this with a supportive spouse. I can't imagine trying to do it. And I've watched some of my friends do actually a really great job at it, but I know it's a heavy, they have some wide shoulders. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
But some of the things I've seen that I think have been good is if they somehow can find people, whether it be an uncle or a neighbor, it doesn't really matter who, but like another man who
their own father.
Yeah. Who can like have their back a little bit for certain situations, because let's just be honest, especially if you have a boy, a little different if you have a girl, because girls and moms and daughters have a different relationship, though it can also be strained. Like the boys. So I'm not saying like only boys need fathers and girls don't need fathers, because girls need fathers as well. But that's just, I feel like I'm just like talking in a circle. I'll just say this. If there can be a strong male figure in the child's life, if the dad is absent for some reason, I just think it can be really helpful, because when just someone that's really willing to stand in the gap there, and you don't, as a woman, don't have to have a relationship with this person, like an intimate relationship, but obviously a relationship where you trust this person to not be some sort of predator or something. But like when these kids have some kind of like your dads come in to talk about their job at school or something, and you're the one without a dad, or if they're in Boy Scouts and they need a dad chaperone, whatever, that they sometimes they have a person that comes, even though it might not be their dad, and it's never going to be the replacement, but it can be a help. And then even for someone to call to say, like, I feel like this kid's struggling in this area, but like he's a boy and I'm a mom, and I don't feel confident having this discussion with him, whether it be about sexuality or something like that. Like, would you mind like taking him out for breakfast and talking to him, seeing like where he's at or whatever? It's like just that kind of thing. Right. And I just think like, if you don't have someone, pray and like maybe seek church counsel. Maybe there's a pastor at your church that can be that person in like a time here and there. I mean, they can't be someone that you lean on as heavy as you would a husband, but I'm just saying it's circumstantial for certain bigger circumstances that this would be the person that could be there for some of these significant events in this child's life. I think it can make a huge difference. And that the kid can always know if they needed a man to talk to, that they could trust, that they could go to this person, and maybe it's a brother that even steps up into that role, maybe it's an uncle, maybe it's a pastor, maybe it's, and then there's, there's this one lady at our church who's raising a grandson, and she's just something else, but she's even said, like, I love when I come to church, and if the kid is acting out or whatever, that one of the men in the church will stop him and tell him, like, talk to him and be like, hey, like, you can't be running in here like that, or like, don't talk to your grandma like that, or like she needs to step in and kind of be that authority figure that she doesn't have in the household because her husband has passed away. Now here she is raising a kid again. So, don't be afraid to step in and try to help.
Yes, exactly.
Or ask for help.
Yes, totally.
none of us like to ask for help. I'm pretty
No.
convinced of it. I was sitting there this morning, actually, helping throw a 50th birthday party for a dear friend of mine. And in my nature, I would just be like, I'll do all of this, you know? And I'm like, no, I cannot. So I'm sat down, I'm delegating. And it's just, when you start doing that, what a blessing, because you start realizing you ask somebody and they're just like, yep. And I almost have the whole party delegated out to, okay, you're doing tables and chairs, you're bringing the salad, you're bringing the bread, you're bringing and it's. Yep.
And it'll be not a burden for anyone. Otherwise you would be trying to do all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
So anyway, I guess I'm saying kind of outsource a parent stand-in.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you have to bear the whole burden.
And it's too heavy.
It is too heavy. That's why God, made fathers and mothers. We need both of them. Mm-hmm. But some situations you don't have both.
Mm-mm. Yeah. So then I think and I don't know, do you think this, whatever situation or time you're in, like right now, my youngest are teenagers. Mm-hmm. So right now my brain kind of wants to go, well, the teenage portion of life, I have the most insecurities about parenting, but
That's
do I just
moving
say that?
Target?
Yeah. Like, do I just
Yes.
say, I kind of almost think like there's just always parenting insecurities.
Yes.
And they shift and change. Mm-hmm. But I just think we always have this little nagging thing in the back of our head asking us, do you even know what you're doing? Mm-hmm. Yeah. You don't know what you're doing. Like, you should be doing X, Y, Z. So-and-so's doing da, da, da. Like, why is your kid not like, and really it comes down to this comparison.
Yeah. Which is the
killer of all joy.
Right?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And parenting is a joy. That's the part that society won't tell you. Mm-hmm. It's like sleepless nights, and it's like pressure, and it's like kids are brats, and then, your life is over. You're never going to get to go out again with your friends, and like all of these things. But being a parent is the biggest joy of life.
Yeah.
It's even better. I think it's even better than marriage because you're sharing it with your spouse. Marriage is great, but when you have a baby, then you can share that. The absolute.
There's like a fullness.
Yes. A richness that's incomparable.
Yeah, I don't judge people that don't have kids or they choose to not have kids. This is my thought when I hear someone that has chosen to not have kids. I think I pity them because I think they don't know, or they for some reason don't understand the joy that can come from that, the beauty that comes from that. And I fear that by the time they realize the truth of it, it'll be too late. Mm-hmm. Because as a woman, you only have a certain window. Like my window's shut.
Yeah, mine too. Long past.
But I'm only in my 40s. And I think there's people that think that window doesn't shut till way later, and it can creep up on a person like you don't realize. And so, people that I want to have my career in place, and I want to have the finances in place, and I want to feel emotionally stable, and I want to work out these things, and my husband and I want to travel for all these places and check these bucket lists, and then we're going to have kids, and then they can't.
Yeah.
Like, I just feel so sad for them because it's just like, I haven't done a lot of traveling or built up my finances or whatever because I chose to have kids, right? Like, it's like, some people have all of it. I chose, right? So right. I chose a family. On the little game of life, I chose the family route.
Yes.
Not the career route, right?
Right, exactly.
And so I chose the family route and piled my minivan, and I have no regrets at all about it, because when the older I get, the more I'm just like, stuff is stuff, and it is just useless. It's pointless, right? It's just stuff. It's just, but what really is all of the people, and people on their deathbed never say,
wish I had more stuff.
Or like, you know what I'm so grateful for is all those trips we took.
I know. No.
It's not really it. And if it is, it's more like, I'm glad that we spent time together. Like, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
I'm not saying trips are bad. Like, don't hear me wrong.
No. Well, and a trip can be to the next county. It doesn't have to be to, a foreign country
but it's always time spent with loved ones.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
And the chances are, hopefully it works out that like you have kids and even as they grow up, they want to hang out with you. So far that has been the case for me. And my kids still enjoy hanging around me to a point. 2 of them still live with me. So, Yeah.
They don't have any choice yet.
But the one that's left yearns to come back, right? Like we talk and all of that. So hopefully people have relationships with their kids, but they're such a full relationship that, like nothing, even my best friend, there's no comparison to like my relationship with my daughter. And my relationship with like, not that we should be comparing, because like we said, comparison is the killer of all joy, but like the relationship that I had with my husband, like it's totally different than a relationship I have with my kid. And so it's just like each kind of relationship we have, I think we need all of them. I think all of them make us a better person.
Right.
Right? Like each, whatever that movie is, you complete me. No, no one person completes one other person, but I will say that like having casual friends, acquaintances, close friendships, old friendships, new friendships, relationships with your children and with a spouse and with God and with, all of them together weaves together this most beautiful life.
Yes, absolutely.
I don't think you can put all your eggs in one basket. And even God, like even having like the best relationship with God without having a relationship with other people, I would almost venture to say like that's not what he wants of us.
No, it isn't. So. And he says that because he
does say that.
Love your neighbor.
Yeah.
You love God, but you also love your neighbor.
Yeah. So he wants that for us. He's like, yes, love me first. I'm your first love. But then, your neighbor, which could be just an acquaintance. And then all of these. And so I'm thinking, I'm like drawing this circle on my desk as we're talking, like thinking about it because I went to we had a Hope and Grief conference on Friday night at the church, and the lady Clarissa Mall, who was that author, came and spoke at it, and she gave us these handouts, and it had this little bullseye thing and quite a few lines on it in the bullseye, and on the very outer part of it, it just said acquaintances, and then you kind of move toward the middle, and it says casual friendships, and then it says close friendships, and then it says best friends, and then it says core people. And so, like God should be at the center, right? And maybe even like close to that, maybe you write in like some names of some kids and your spouse or something like that. And then from there you should be writing out. And this is the interesting thing about it is she said, research has shown that when someone suffers something traumatic, like a death of a loved one or something like that, that the friendships can play a more integral part in that person's healing than their own family. Because family pain is usually shared. And you don't want to compound someone else's pain within your own family, right? Like they're also grieving, so I don't want to dump my grief on them type of thing. And so this is why it's so important to not only like put all your eggs in one basket and be like, all I need is my family. Like, yes, your family might be great, but you do need friends and you do need neighbors and you do need all these like people, anyone that God puts in your path, they're all important. And so then you have a death of a loved one, you can go and like for instance, like you could like say things to me about losing Al that you would never want to say to your kids because you don't want to compound their pain.
I know. Exactly. Thank you for being that person.
Yeah.
One of those people.
Yeah. No, I feel honored to be. It's, and the shared pain is really just that.
Yes.
Like when he says bear each other's burdens, I do believe that when you have something going on, whether it's like trouble in your marriage, trouble with a wayward child or a death of the family, something like that, when you are able to have a close friend that you can share and be vulnerable with about that pain, I do believe that pain, they take some of that pain and they share it so you're not shouldering it all. I literally feel it.
Yeah, I know. That burden weighs less than it did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And I think the weird thing is that the person that you share it with may feel a burden, but they don't feel it the way that you did.
True.
Because I feel like, in some of the ministries, some of the more difficult ministries that I've worked in, helping survivors of sexual abuse, somebody's asked, how can you hear those stories and not be just burdened? But I feel like those stories come into my ears and down into my heart, and I pray, but they continue through my heart and out into my arms and up and leave the tips of my fingers as I pray and lay it at the cross.
Yeah. No, I love how you said that. That's so true.
It doesn't stay inside of me.
Yeah. Well, some people don't understand because they ruminate about things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but he does tell us, come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest, So you can lay your burdens there and walk. And sometimes, and when it's not your own loss.
Yes. It's not your own
different.
burden.
Yeah. I can hear something from you and I can feel in a deep way and feel that sorrow and shoulder some of that and then be praying for you. And then, not to sound rude, but then I forget about it.
I know.
I don't live my everyday thinking about it.
Yeah, exactly.
It'll cross my mind periodically, but it's not the weight that it is on you.
Right. Exactly.
It's just taking a little part. So, parenting insecurities.
So do parenting insecurities ever go away?
No.
Well,
I don't know.
No, they don't. I mean,
they don't. Well, no. I was wondering if all of your kids are grown and
no. Well,
on their own,
I'm not.
Does it go away? You're not. I know you're not.
I don't think so yet. Because no, but my oldest is pushing 40, and there's still I don't know. It's different because it's not the insecurity of a toddler. It's not the insecurity of how do you potty train or what kind of school are we going to do? But it's a maybe less than insecurity. It's a concern. Are they going to be okay?
Yeah. So exactly. I think that's different though. I think that's different.
Yeah. I think it is different than insecurity.
If you have a parenting insecurity, it's more about am I not doing it right? Is there something I'm not doing right? Once the kid is gone and married and lived and cleaved and has their own family, there is no more can I do now you better just focus on yourself and be am I honoring their marriage? Am I minding my own business?
Right.
But so maybe it's an insecurity about, maybe it is actually because maybe you're just am I being a good, because I have thought am I being a good mother-in-law?
Yes.
Am I being a good mom to a grown, I want to honor I still want to honor their boundaries. So it is, but it's not, just we talked about shared pain. And then I think I feel it deeply and then I move on. I think parenting insecurities when they're in your house are more they're always there and there's always that weight on you. And then when the kid actually goes away, moves, moves on with their life. Now it's more a shared thing. Now it's you have moments where you feel deeply, but you give it to the Lord and you move on and it's not weighing on you all the time.
Right.
It's just things cross your mind.
Because it's not in your home all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it does transition to that. So it's kind of interesting that we had just talked about that because I would say that's a perfect analogy for a kid who's out of the home now. Yeah, you don't stop caring, you don't stop loving, you don't stop any of that, but your parenting insecurity shifts to a different, lower threshold. You don't have to, it's not a constant thing. Yeah. But there's still inside work that we need to be doing.
Yeah. Well, and that's going to be forever, right?
Yeah. And that's forever. And that's just for, dealing with relationships in general, but.
Yes.
But so, Here's my biggin is
right.
As I watch my kids grow up, if I see, as I'm talking teenagers now, I'm talking okay, your kid's ready to graduate from high school, they're ready to move on to the next step. I think that's a very hard place.
Yeah.
because you look around and some of these kids are going to college and some of these kids are starting businesses and some of these kids are, you know,
getting married
and having a family and whatever. And if you have a kid that's not doing any of the above and is kind of having a little bit of a failure to launch, taking a little bit of a longer time, kind of what would I call it? A late bloomer who is like struggling to move on to that next phase, that can cause some serious parenting insecurity.
Because there's comparison again.
Yeah.
Your cousins are all going to college and getting married and getting jobs and starting
or joining
businesses.
the military or,
yes,
you know,
yes.
something.
Yeah.
And, that one's the tough one for me because I have to reconcile it to within myself a lot, because what it really comes down to is, you know, how much control should a parent have over a grown kid? How much responsibility is ours? Like, here's the most vulnerable part. Is it my fault?
Right.
That my child doesn't seem to be moving on to the next part of their life? And honestly, like, I'm just throwing out questions. I'm not going to answer any of those.
Right.
The only thing that I've learned to do so far is be his mom. To love him and care for him and
encourage
and try to be in a relationship.
Yeah.
It can be hard though. And then I watch other people and I know like I'll take it. The kid's a good kid, right? He's great. Helps out. Like someone's like, you know, he's going to live with you forever. And I thought, there's worse things.
Yeah. Right.
Right? There's worse things.
Yeah.
I know of people who have kids that are totally wayward, that have walked away and like refused to be in a relationship with a parent. I'm hearing this more and more, where this next generation is labeling parents as toxic parents and cutting off all relationship.
Yeah. That'll give you parenting insecurity right there.
Right?
Whew.
Or the child who leaves and then decides they are in fact not a boy, but they're a girl. Or the kid who's chomping at the bit to grow up and takes off and ends up in drug addiction and living on the street. I mean, not everybody has a happily ever after where you raise a kid and they turn out to be, and I mean, I praise God every day for like my first one that's left and how great, you know, her life is and her husband is and their child is and all of that. And like, I don't take it for granted because I have a lot of friends walking through a lot of hard things. So when it's kind of that rule of when you start feeling bad about yourself, my mom always said, like, look around, there's always people worse off than you.
Yeah.
And that's a tough one because I'm careful to say that because I don't like to minimize the fact that people are going through something, right? To say, sometimes it's not appropriate to say, well, there's people worse off than you, you know, without even hearing what the person's really going through and trying to shoulder some of that.
Exactly.
But there's truth in it. So like the time and place is really important with that one. But I do have to remind myself that there are a lot of people worse off than me. So if I really want to get into the comparison game, let me compare how bad it could be. And be grateful for what I do have instead of looking for what I don't have.
Yeah.
Or my child. Like I talk about, like I'm saying like my child is a literal extension of myself.
Right.
And I think that's a problem that like I've struggled with too, is to like remind myself that my child is not an extension of me. They are a completely separate person.
Autonomous human. Yeah.
That's actually like a pretty sneaky trap a lot of us fall into from time to time.
Yeah.
Is when a kid makes a mistake, we feel like it's our fault. Well, it's not us, right? Like it's them and they're making their choices and they have free will. There was a statement made one time that I thought was beautiful that said, you cannot take credit for your kids' successes, nor can you take responsibility for their shortcomings. And I think there's some importance in that because we already have enough pain in our lives. We can't take on every bad thing that everyone else that's in our sphere does as like it's ours.
Right.
Somehow we need to mentally separate that.
Yeah. We need to mentally separate it without completely absolving ourselves from every bit of responsibility. There has to be a balance there, because your parenting does matter. If you have no responsibility for the way your child turns out, then that means your parenting doesn't really, you can do whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just going to turn out how they're going to turn out. No, your parenting matters deeply. Maybe not when your kid is 20, 25, 30, they're going to make their choices. And some of them you may not agree with, but you have to make sure that you have that foundation, that you have taught them properly, truth, responsibility, like all the things that are on your shoulders to teach.
Yeah, by all means, like, do what you're called to do. I'm not trying to say that there's no responsibility on the parent's part, but when it really comes down to it, they are autonomous. They are their own person.
Absolutely. They are going to make their choices. Yep.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to bring that up because we're talking about parenting insecurities. If your child is making poor choices as an adult, that's not something you can control.
Mm-hmm.
And that isn't something you can change.
I agree. And I hear you. Like when your kids are young, you should be teaching them right from wrong. You should be teaching them kindness. You should be teaching them what God's called us to be, and all of those things. And that's really important. And not only to teach them and tell them, but to model it. Yes.
Even more important than telling them is model it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like how you fight with your spouse, that's how they'll fight with you. How you talk to your spouse, how you talk to them, that's how they'll talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
That was a hard, long lesson for me to learn. Can I just share that? Mm-hmm. When my daughter, we're so close now. We're so similar. That's really what's going on here in this story.
Yeah.
She would talk to me with such a sass, with such an attitude and tone of voice. I just it would make me want to just deck her.
Yeah.
And I'm talking little, I'm talking I think it finally resolved around the age of 12.
Yeah.
But it was really bad starting from the minute that kid opened her mouth. I mean, she's probably 3 years old. It was just this constant battle of wills between the two of us.
Yeah.
And what it really came to, and my husband tried telling me so many times, but I'm such a hard head sometimes. It took me just years to learn this, is in this, the way that I was talking to her, because I would be it was like this, it was feeding this thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would get irritated at her for doing something that I had already very clearly told her not to do. And so then I would finally, it's just here's the difference. It's honey, can you please stop writing on the wall with crayons?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, mommy, right.
Mm-hmm.
Then they write on the wall again. It's you need to stop writing on the wall. You're going to get a spanking type thing. You need to stop writing on the wall. You know how your voice changes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's this is a horrible example, but what would happen is I would ask her to do something and she'd sass back to me, and I'd ask her, well, come to find out, the exact way that I was talking to her was the exact way she was mocking back to me, which is why it was so annoying to me.
Mm-hmm.
It was literally, finally this is what clicked. Because I was my husband the way he explains things to me sometimes I just don't understand. And so he finally said to me one day, the next time she comes at you and is just whining and demanding and whatever, he's don't engage. Just look at her so she knows that you see that she's there, but don't say a word. Wait until she completely burns out and then see what happens or whatever. And I was all right, I'll try. So I was doing the dishes and she came in just strutting with an attitude and I want my tablet back or whatever. And I was just she had already gotten it taken away that day for something. I don't remember what. And I just looked at her and smiled and kept doing the dishes. And she started demanding, I want it back. I want it back now. Why can't I have it back? Blah, blah, blah. Da, da, da. It's someone else's fault. And this excuse and that excuse, and whining and starting to raise her voice at me and get annoyed. And I just would look at her every once in a while and kept doing the dishes. And she finally starts to scream, just so angry, rage.
Mm-hmm.
Why won't you talk to me? This kind of thing. And I just wouldn't. She goes, finally, probably 5 straight minutes of it. I was like, I don't know how much longer I can do this.
Yeah.
She finally walks away, like stomps away, slams her bedroom door. And I'm just like, take a deep breath. She comes out a few minutes later and like slides a note like into the kitchen. And I see it, like, and then she, like, I hear her little feet, like, run away or whatever. So I walk over there and I grab it, and it was like, I'm so sorry. I was being so bad. You're such a good mom. I love you so much. Pictures of hearts and smiley faces and whatever. And I'm like, I did nothing.
Yeah.
And then, so she's already gotten mad. She realizes she's the one in the wrong.
Yeah.
Then I'm able to go talk to her when she's calmed down after seeing her cute little letter and say, the reason I wasn't talking to you is because I am no longer going to have conversations with you when you're talking to me rudely or in a bad tone of voice or raising your voice with me. Do you understand?
Mm-hmm.
And that was literally the turning point.
Yeah.
It was like magic.
Yeah.
But it took me, just for anyone out there listening that's struggling,
Yes.
like it was from age 5 to like probably 11 or 12. So how many years is that? Do the math. Like that, I just fought with this kid.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can learn that lesson when they're 5,
Mm-hmm.
do it.
It's a lot easier.
So we are responsible because like they literally will be like little us's, you know?
Yeah.
When I meet a kid and they are like, let's say they're like little, like 5 or 6, and they're the sweetest, most polite, most kind child, I don't even have to know their parents, and I can say, I want to be friends with their parents.
Exactly.
Because they are probably the most kind, nice, generous, whatever people.
Yeah. And that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah. And I agree.
There is responsibility there in raising,
Mm-hmm.
but then you also have to realize they are going to grow up and they're adults and they're going to do what they want to do.
Yeah.
Sometimes before they're adults, sometimes you're going to have
strong-willed.
Yeah. You're going to have a problematic relationship before they're even adults.
You know what? I just cleaned out the room that I'm sitting in right now, had a bookshelf, and it has so many books on it. We have a problem with books. So,
you and me both.
Oh, golly. So I was like, I'm cleaning this out. I stacked them all up, and I was as I'm pulling them all out of here and stacking them up and looking, I just was kind of chuckling to myself because they've obviously been sitting there a while. And I had so many books on like how to raise a strong-willed child, like what to do, like what, like they were like so many
training.
So many parenting books on like how to be a mom to boys. Like, I mean, there was just like, I should have like, it was a while ago before like we talking about this. And so I wish I would have like sat down and like had a list of all of the stupid books I read trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Not stupid. I mean, I'm guessing some of them probably helped somewhere along the way, but when it really comes down to it, so much problems that we have in our parenting is actually personal problems.
Mm-hmm.
Our own personal problems.
Yeah. Because we're still trying to figure it out too.
Yeah.
Ain't a single one of us got it figured out.
Wasn't that such a bubble being burst when you got older? When you're younger and you think like all these adults just,
yep,
you're just a kid being like, they're all going to care for me and take care of me and do all the things that need to be. And I'm just like having a great time and they're so adulty, you know, and I like look back at some of the pictures and I'm like, they weren't adults. Like,
yeah.
I mean, they kind of were, but like all of my aunts and uncles and parents, whatever, were all married at 18. Like they were kids raising kids and like just a group of kids raising a group of kids. I'm like, no wonder why our childhood was so crazy. It was so fun.
Yeah.
It was so fun.
Yeah.
But I really, then you get to be an adult and you realize, ain't no one know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
We're all just kind of winging it.
Yeah.
I just told my daughter this the other day when she asked me something. I said, do you really think we all know what's happening?
Yeah, exactly.
Or what to do or whatever? You know, like
No.
you just got to figure it out. Like you got to just grab that screwdriver and get to work.
Yep.
Everything's figure outable.
Yeah.
You put your mind and elbow grease into it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they never go away. That's the whole point. But I think
they do shift though.
They shift.
Yep.
I think they get easier in some ways, but
yes, they do.
Harder in other ways because you have this false illusion. If anyone's listening and they only have little kids and they like think they have control over their kids, you don't.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not even really the goal.
No. The goal is to have them grow up and be followers of Christ. Yes. Self-governing followers of Christ who love God and love their neighbor, right? Because that's what our goal is as well.
Yep. And then go get the therapy for whatever way I screwed you up.
That's right. Oh boy.
I mean, I was working through a lot of my own stuff while I was raising my kids. So it's, I'm sure it built some character, but it probably caused some wounds too.
Yeah. But you said, you're looking back at the pictures of your childhood and there were kids raising kids. But I think no matter the age, I think you're a kid raising a kid because you've never done it before. Even if you start when you're 30.
Right.
You may have a little more things figured out, but you still have never been a parent.
Right.
So maybe you're not a kid, but you're inexperienced in this area.
Yeah. And I mean, I just say go for it. I mean, many a young and dumb person has succeeded.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Like we're proof. No, maybe not you. Me, I'm proof.
Yeah.
You just, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing though, like, just try not to compare your kids to other kids. It doesn't do them any good and it doesn't do you any good.
Yeah.
Just try to, I mean, don't we all want to just be met where we are? Like, meet me where I'm at, not where you think I should be, not where you expect me to be in the future. Mm-hmm. Sure, encourage me that I can be a better person than I am today, but love me anyways. Like, that's what every kid's cry is, I think. Like, love me for who I am. A lot of them don't even know who they are yet.
Yeah.
But love them through the process of that.
I think that's every parent's cry too.
Yeah, we need to have grace with one another. Because some of us really don't know how to.
And don't lay any more burden on them,
Right.
Your friends, your acquaintances, your whatever. People in your church, like everybody's muddling through the best they can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just be careful. I think when people think they're helping, like make sure you're really helping. Make sure you're not lording something over someone. Like, the Bible says this, right? Like when you're saying something, you filter it through like, is it kind? Is it true? Is it helpful? Is it, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Or
am I just, hey, I got it all figured out. Let me tell you how to do it. Like nobody wants that.
No, exactly.
Nobody wants that. Like the whole nursing thing. Breast is best. I'm like, you know what? Fed is best.
Absolutely.
There's many ways to go about it. Free range children, like I was.
And you turned out okay.
Yeah. Got a few scars, but I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for chatting about this with me. That was fun.
Was it? No, was it?
It was. It was. I think it's good to work through it and just, reflect. That's why I love our Friday mornings.
Yeah.
We can just reflect about something intentionally, and it's another person to bounce ideas off of, a good friend to bounce ideas off of. So
it's cheaper than counseling.
Absolutely.
Like,
thanks.
This is therapy for me. So,
and me. So, we're both benefiting here.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to see what we're going to pull out of our hat next week. But until then.
Yeah. I appreciate being a parent, and I appreciate being at the end of that journey real soon.
Same. Same.
Bye.
Bye. I'm Stacey.
And I'm Lois.
And you're listening to Whose Girl Are You? What are we listening to? Whose Girl Are You? Yeah. Oh, it's going to be one of these days, is it?